With Parallax fast approaching, Sinestro prepares to put on the yellow ring to combat it, but Hal urges him not to and requests the help of the Guardians in stopping Parallax before it destroys the Earth, which they refuse. Given all of these actions, I'm pretty sure that the Lantern Corps is actually afraid of fighting Parallax. And Sinestro said one must be without fear to be a Green Lantern. Hypocritical much? Returning to Earth, Hector has kidnapped Carol and forces Hal to surrender his ring to save her life, which he does. However, when Hector reveals he lied and prepares to kill Hal, Hal reveals he also lied, that one must be chosen to use the ring, and Hector is blasted back as Parallax arrives, killing him for his failure to kill Hal before trying to kill Hal himself, but is fended off by Carol sending aircraft missiles at him, buying them enough time for Hal to regain his ring. As Parallax goes out to consume every human as a source of fear, Hal moves to stop him, but Parallax soon gains the upper hand and prepares to consume Hal. However, Hal's willpower proves to be more than enough to overcome his fear and turns the tide of the fight. In the resulting climax, which is so CG heavy it looks like a cartoon, Hal is able to get Parallax off of Earth and flings him into the sun. A lesson taught by Kilowog earlier in the film, destroying Parallax and nearly himself in the process, but is saved by the other lanterns. Brought to Oa, Sinestro congratulates him for defeating Parallax, says the ring did make the right call, as to be a lantern, one must not be unafraid, but be able to overcome fear. Hal returns to Earth and makes out with Carol, and the film ends with an after-credits scene where Sinestro puts on the yellow ring to become the main villain of the non-existent sequel. And that was Green Lantern, and it's Amazing Spider-Man 2 bad. While its casting is solid enough, and it tries with the material, Green Lantern is riddled with a cliched, overstuffed plot, which could possibly be salvaged if the effects were good, but it's clear this is CGI overkill to the point it's cartoonish. I get that they were going with a more comedic tone, but when you factor in the abrupt dramatic shifts and some of the imagery, it just doesn't work. Iron Man worked because the material given was smart and focused on the characters rather than creating a cinematic universe, which is the exact opposite of what happened with this film. This feels like two completely different films cut up by executives and spliced into one. Warner Brothers spent $200 million producing this film, which they financed themselves after Legendary Pictures, which helped finance Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, passed on the project. In addition, the studio spent another $100 million marketing the film domestically, with another $75 million spent to market it abroad. That means $375 million was spent producing and marketing this train wreck. So the film would need to make north of $680 million worldwide to break even, let alone spawn a sequel. Did it get close to that break-even point? It couldn't even do a third of that number, as it made just $219.85 million worldwide. One of the major signs of this disaster was in its marketing, which failed to entice audiences with its generic look, uneven CG, and lack of coherence. So instead of refining the advertisements, Warner Brothers instead shoved out more advertisements, focusing on the quantity of ads rather than the quality, enough to force audiences to see just what the hell the studio was shoving down their throats. Also, one of the trailers used the exact same music as a trailer of The Last Airbender. That's an assuring sign! And what audiences saw wasn't good as critics panned it, effectively proving to the audiences that the film was just as bad as it looked. It did open in first place with $53.17 million, which wasn't a good debut, all things considered, especially in comparison to other June superhero releases such as Batman Begins, Superman Returns, or even Hulk. Of course, when looking at the daily breakdown, It likely wasn't going to last long, as it fell a steep 22% from Friday to Saturday, falling in line with its lackluster B cinema score. As a result, it fell 66% in its second weekend, which saw Cars 2 open, and then collapsed another 63% in its third weekend, with the arrival of Transformers Dark of the Moon claiming much of its remaining audience, and it didn't really recover, finishing its domestic run with just 116.6 million. Its overseas run wasn't much better, as DC didn't exactly have the brand recognition out of the States as other franchises do. The Dark Knight failed to match its domestic gross overseas, as an example, and a similar fate befell Green Lantern with just 103.25 million, with the top markets of the film being Mexico, Brazil, and the United Kingdom. After theaters take their cut of the gross, Warner Brothers would see back just $100.3 million, which would cover their domestic ad spend, but none of the foreign marketing costs or the budget. As a result of the failure, the DC Cinematic Universe would be delayed until the arrival of Man of Steel 2 years later, and Green Lantern's comic-y stuff resulted in Warner Brothers going for a darker tone, which resulted in a lot of issues. The estimated theatrical loss on this film is $274.7 million. Thanks for watching, press the like button, be sure to subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at Tyler the Analyst.
If I've seen you naked, you don't think I would recognize you because I can't see your cheekbones?